Kathleen here for another story time, and I'm so excited that you joined me on such a beautiful autumn? Is it autumn? What season is it? I meant to say spring. It's spring, a spring day. I'm outside against my fence in my yard, and I hear birds singing, and it's warm, and there's insects buzzing around, and I couldn't be more excited for this nice weather. I'm sure you're enjoying it too. Well, I have one more Easter book for us. We did Easter stories last week, and I wanted to read to you one of my favorite books from when I was a child. It's called The Country Bunny and the Little Golden Shoes. And when I was a little girl, I used to have this book read to me over and over, and it didn't even have to be Easter. And my favorite part, you'll see in the story, there's a little sugar egg that you get to look into. And for some reason that just enamored me, and I loved that part of this story. It is a little bit of a longer book, so I'm only going to do one story today. And if you get tired and impatient and don't want to sit and listen the whole time, you don't have to, or you could hit pause and we could finish the story another day. I've also got a craft at the end to show you. So let's start. The Country Bunny and the Little Golden Shoes by Du Bois Hayward. Pictures by Marjorie Hacht. And thanks to the publisher Houghton Mifflin for letting me read this to my friends today. We hear of the Easter Bunny who comes each Easter day before sunrise to bring eggs for boys and girls, so we think that there's only one. But this is not so. There are really 5 Easter bunnies, and they must be the 5 kindest and swiftest and wisest bunnies in the whole wide world, because between sunset on Easter Eve and dawn on Easter morning, they do more work than one rabbit does for a whole year. When one of the Easter bunnies grows old and can no longer run fast, the old, wise, and kind grandfather bunny who lives at the palace of the Easter eggs calls the bunnies together from the whole world to select the very best one to take the place. Often a mother bunny says to her child, "Now if you learn to be wise and kind and swift, someday you may grow up to be one of the Easter bunnies." And all of the babies try their very best so they can grow up and work for the grandfather Easter bunny at the palace of Easter eggs. One day a little country girl bunny with a brown skin and a little cottontail ball tail said, "Someday I shall grow up to be the Easter bunny. You wait and see." Then all of the big white bunnies who lived in fine houses and the jackrabbits with long legs who can run so fast laughed at the little cottontail and told her to go back to the country and eat a carrot. But she said, "Wait and see." The little girl Cottontail grew up to be a young lady Cottontail, and by she had a husband, and then one day, much to her surprise, there were 21 Cottontail bunnies to take care of. Look at all those bunnies, can you imagine? Oh, they certainly are cute. Then the big white rabbits and the jackrabbits with the long legs laughed, and they said, "Oh, what did we tell you? Only a country rabbit would go and have all those babies. Now take care of them and leave Easter eggs to great big men bunnies like us." And they went away liking themselves very much. Now, of course, I have to pause at that because you don't have to be a country bunny to have lots of babies. That's your decision. You can live in the city. You can be whoever you want and have as many children as you want. I didn't like that part about this book, and I don't like the part that says Easter eggs have to be taken care of by big men bunnies like us. No, this is an older book, so things weren't said or thought of the same way between men and women back in, this is probably 1960. Now, anyone can do anything, no matter if they're a man or a woman, so don't let that stop you. Cottontail stopped thinking about hopping over the world with lovely eggs for little girls and boys, and she took care of her babies, which is a very important job. And one day, when her children stopped being babies and were little girl and boy bunnies, she called them to her and she said, Now we're going to have some fun. Then to two of them she gave little brooms and showed them how to sweep the cottage. And she taught two of them how to make the beds. Two more went with her to the kitchen, and in no time at all, they found out how to cook dinner. And with these went the two little dishwashers, and they made the glasses shine like crystal. Two had little wash tubs full of soap suds, and they washed all the linen. Linen is like sheets and towels. Two did the sewing and the mending. Two who had sweet voices were taught to sing, and two more were taught to dance. And these amused all the other bunnies while they worked. Two others were soon digging in the garden, and two she gave paints and crayons so they could make pretty pictures for the walls. And when Mother Cottontail had given out all of the tasks, she looked around, and there was only one little boy bunny left, and he was sad and lonely. Then Mother Cottontail said to him, "You are the most polite of all my children, so I shall make you keeper of my chair. And whenever I come to dinner, you shall seat me politely at the table." Then one day, when the little rabbits were half grown up, she heard a great talk among the wood rabbits. And when she asked what it was about, they said, "Haven't you heard? One of the 5 Easter bunnies has grown too slow, and we are all going to the Palace of Easter Eggs to see old grandfather pick out a new one to take his place." So she called her little cottontails, and they all set off to the palace to see the fun. But their mother was sad because she thought that now she was nothing but an old mother bunny and could only look on, and that a big handsome white rabbit or a long-legged jackrabbit would be chosen. When they came to the Palace of the Easter Eggs, there were bunnies everywhere on the great lawn, and the ones that hoped to be the Easter bunny stood together. And all the others looked at them and clapped their paws. Then the big front door opened, and the old, wise, and kind grandfather came hopping out slowly. And he told the biggest and those with the longest legs to show what they could do. They jumped and ran and showed him their pretty white fur, and they were all very fast and very clever. Clever means smart. But still he did not pick one. And he said to them, "You are pretty and you are fast, but you have not shown me that you are either kind or wise." Then his kind old eyes looked everywhere, and at last they rested on little Cottontail Mother, where she stood with her children all around her. And he called her to come up to the palace steps. So she took her 21 children and went up and stood before him. And when he spoke, his voice was so kind that she was not frightened at all. And he said, "What a large family you have, my dear. I suppose they take up all your time." But she said, "When they were babies, that was so, but now they are so well trained that they do most of the work for me." "Ah," he said, smiling, "you must be very wise to train so many children so well. But tell me, do they always look so happy, and do they always hold their ears up so prettily?" "Indeed they do," she answered. "We never have a tear or a cross word in our little country cottage. And if I do say it myself, they do carry their ears better than most bunnies." "Then," he said, patting the nearest bunny on the head, "you must be very kind indeed to have such a happy home. It is too bad that you have no time to run and grow swift, as I might then have made you my 5th Easter bunny." At that, Mother Cottontail started to laugh. Then she whispered to the little bunnies, and every rabbit on the lawn looked to see what would happen, and the old grandfather leaned forward to watch. Suddenly, all 21 children raced away, and Cottontail dashed after them. In no time at all, she had them all back again in front of the palace. Then the old, kind, wise grandfather bunny said, "I see that you're all so swift, fast. It is too bad that you cannot go to carry my eggs, because you will have to stay at home to take care of your children." Mother Cottontail nodded her head to the little ones, and they all formed a line and bowed low to the grandfather. Then she stepped in front of them and said, "They will take better care of the house than I." Then she called them up 2 by 2, and she put her hands on her heads. Of each pair she said, "These are my sweepers. They keep the cottage as clean as your hand. These make the beds without a wrinkle. These cook my dinner. These wash the dishes. These tend the garden. These wash and dry all the clothes. These do the mending. These sing. These dance. And these are the painting rabbits that keep pictures on our walls. And this little one of all always pulls out my chair for me when I sit at the table. So you see, I can leave them to take care of the house until I come home." Then the old, kind, wise grandfather said, "You have proved yourself to be not only wise and kind and swift, but also very clever. Come to the palace tomorrow afternoon, for it is Easter Eve, and you shall be my 5th bunny." Ooh, look at that palace. Can you see her going in the door? The next evening, Cottontail knocked on the big front door and was admitted or let in to the palace. There she stood in her funny country clothes, but none of the other 4 Easter bunnies laughed, for they were wise and kind and knew better. Wow, look at all those eggs. They showed her all over the palace, from room to room, piled high with eggs of gold and silver, and eggs that glittered like snow, and chocolate eggs, and marshmallow eggs, eggs for all types of people, even eggs for children who were sick and who lived all over the world. Then, as soon as it was dark enough for the children to be asleep all over the world, the old, wise, kind grandfather gave the word, and the 5 bunnies set to work as fast as they could. First one, then the other, would take up a large egg or a pretty little basket, and in a single hop would be out of the palace and away out of sight. Then, in a moment, he would be back again, and before you could say, "Jack Robinson," he would have whisked away. Slowly, the night wore away, and the bunnies began to look tired as they kept returning for more and more eggs, more and more baskets. Poor little Cottontail was very tired, for this was the first time she had ever gone so far and so fast in her life, and she was beginning to hope that she could soon take the little basket that was set aside for her own children and go hopping home, when old, wise, kind grandfather called him to her. When she went close, she saw that he was holding in his hand the loveliest egg she had ever seen. It glittered like a diamond. "Peek through, and you shall see what you see," he said. So she peeked. That's that special egg I was telling you about that I loved so much when I was a girl. Let's see. What does she see? Do you have any guesses? Can you think of what she might see in there? Through the little hole in one end, she saw a beautiful scene with a sleigh and a lake with people skating on the ice. And he said, "Because you have such a loving heart for children, I'm going to give you the best but the hardest trip of all. Far over the rivers and through 3 mountains, there's a great mountain peak. And in a little cottage on that peak is a little boy who has been ill, sick, for many, many months, a whole year. But he has been so brave, and never once has he cried or complained. The mountain is so high that there is ice on it. But if you get there, you will give more happiness than any other Easter bunny." Cottontail picked up the egg very gently and went hopping away on her journey. She crossed the first river, and then the next, and she went over the first mountain, and then another, and yet another, until at last she reached the highest mountain of all. Wow, that's a high mountain, isn't it? She was very tired when at last she got to the bottom of the great peak, and her heart failed her when she saw how high it was and how slippery it was with ice and snow on top. But holding the egg very carefully, she started hopping up. At last she reached the snow and ice, and now she was almost to the top, and she could see the little cottage all covered with snow where the little boy was sleeping. Then a terrible thing happened. Her foot slipped, and down she came. Downward she flew into the snowdrifts. Then she left the ice and snow, and rolling and bouncing against the stones, she felt the air get warmer. Down, down she went, and she crashed through a thicket of budding laurel, rolled across a pasture, and finally struck against the trunk of the great apple tree that was getting ready to bloom for Easter. And there she lay with an egg still safely clutched in her paw, but with a great pain in her leg. She tried to rise again because she saw a lovely pink light in the sky, and she knew that in a few minutes more it would be day, and the little boy would be sad if he did not get the egg. But the pain was so bad she fell down. Then she felt something touch her shoulder, and she looked up, and right there, right before her, way off in the distant land, who is it? The kind, wise Grandfather Bunny. And he smiled at her, and he said, "You are not only wise and kind and swift, but you are also the bravest bunny, and I shall make you my very own gold shoe Easter bunny." And he reached over, and she saw for the first time that he was holding a tiny pair of gold shoes in his hand, and he bent down and put them on her feet. Suddenly all the pain left her leg, and she stood up, picked up the precious egg. Then, before she knew what was happening, she felt a sudden motion, and she found herself flying high in the air. Over the pasture she flew, over the laurel, the stones, until at last, when she landed, she looked back and saw that in one single jump she had carried herself halfway up the mountain. Then she jumped once again, and there she was at the cottage door. Quickly she squeezed through the tiny crack that had been left open, just in case the bunny did come all that way. And in the hand of the beautiful sleeping boy, she placed the egg. Then, just as Easter morning sun rose over the edge of the world, she jumped quickly back to the palace, where she found her little basket for her own little bunnies. She went hopping back home to give them a happy Easter. Mother Cottontail found that the garden was tended, and sure enough, just as she had said, everything was in order. The floors were swept, and there were 2 lovely new pictures painted and hanging on the wall. The dishes were washed and shown in the cupboard. The clothes were washed and mended and hung nicely. And all of her 21 children were all sound asleep in their little beds. The little house of Mother Cottontail can always be told now from the homes of all the bunnies, because in a special place on the wall, on a very special hook, hangs a pair of very special golden shoes. Oh, isn't that a fun story? It's a long story. I'm glad you stuck with it with me. Let's go back inside and I'll show you the craft. You can call us or you can come in and pick up the craft. We're now open to the public Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday 10 to 2, and we're still offering curbside pickup. So you can call for the craft and we can put it with some books for you and you can pick it up at curbside, or you can come into the library and ask for it and we'll have it for you. All right, let's go inside. All right, let's do the craft. So you can call us at the library or stop in to get your craft materials for our egg sun catcher. And what you'll get is a piece of contact paper. And it's probably, it may already be folded in half. I can't remember if I folded them, but if not, fold it in half. And then you're gonna cut it in half right along that fold line. There we go. Bum, 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 bum. Doesn't have to be perfect. Then you're going to peel off one of the papers from it. That's the tricky part. Peel that off. And then the sticky side goes up so your kiddo can put these different tissue paper squares I'll have for you. You can also do whatever you want at home. And then we don't have to do the egg shape yet because we're going to cut out the egg shape. So just have them place the tissue paper however they wish. You can do a pattern if you want to encourage them to do a pattern. That's a great early learning skill. I'm just going to kind of go random and see if they can work from the center out. That way you can make your egg as big as you get on the outside perimeter of that shape. Once you have that all done, then you're going to take the other sheet, peel it off. All right, peel that off, and then you're going to try to line up the edges, sticky side down, so you make a little sandwich. Just try to get it on there. Mine has a few wrinkles, but you could always just take something like a pencil or I've got a marker here trying to smooth out those wrinkles. Usually it's just on one side, no big deal. So now I've got my little sandwich, and then you can take a marker and make an egg shape for your child to cut out, or you can help them, like so. Then, cut that out. You can show the edge if you want, or you can cut inside. Then you can find something to hang it up with. You can just grab some string and tape, string and a stapler, even just tape it up in the window. They look pretty up against the light. All right. Oop. Come on. There you have it. You could write Happy Easter or Happy Spring, and when you hang it up, the sun will shine through in such a beautiful way. So feel free to call us in and ask for the craft to be delivered to you with your curbside children's book bundle, or you can just come to the children's desk and ask for the egg craft. All right, we'll see you next week. Enjoy the sun. Bye-bye.